What's up, spilled milkers? Get comfortable here in my seat. I'm sure I've worn this t-shirt before, and I'm not in a hotel room. Just the current update. I'm recording this on Friday, July 5th. Yesterday was my birthday, so all I've done all week long is revel in the glory of another trip around the sun. It has been a mixed bag of a week. Got back from New York. James Kent's funeral and memorial service was inspiring and reminded me how not to take anything for granted and make sure not to be sweating the little things. My Yoda, my spiritual guru of 32 and a half years, the man who taught me how to live, everything good in my life, I give credit to my friend Jim L. And he's in a hospital, and to be honest, I'm not sure if he's ever coming out of there. And so it's been very, very difficult to be celebrating something. Well, I'm in the midst of all of this swirl of messaging from the universe about mortality. But we trudge on. That's been my past week since I've spoken to you last. What I'm reading these days is absolutely nothing. I'm doing a lot of writing. We have another couple seasons of Wild Game Kitchen that I'm shooting in a few weeks, so I'm feverishly writing recipes and have not been reading anything. I finally saw Dune 2. Am I the last person in the world to see Dune 2? Not as good as Dune 1. Just not as good. Some nice moments, but just not as good. And what I'm listening to music-wise, for whatever reason, I heard a Joni Mitchell song on the radio, and I started listening to the soundtracks to all the great concert movies that I love so much, from The Last Waltz to Stop Making Sense to Quadrophenia. I listened to Quadrophenia over the course of a couple days from in my car, straight through from start to finish. And I know, Tommy's the great rock opera or whatever. And I listened to Hair, the musical, which I love. But I don't know. Quadrophenia, is there a better album? Let the feverish arguing begin. I mean, just in the sense of holistically knitting together, telling a story. I'm just like, God, in their prime, The Who, unbelievable. And I'll just throw this out there, Entwistle, the best rock and roll bass player of all time. It's just not even, I don't care about Sting. I don't care about a couple of these other people. Just Entwistle, period. End of discussion. Okay. Someone asked me, it wasn't on the Ask Me Anything, although they did ask me, and it was about anything. So I'm going to dive in there first. I forgot how great Tic Tacs are. Not the original flavor. All the different flavors that have come out since. The tropical mix, the mixed fruit, the orange, the strawberry and cream, and everything in between. And I started eating them. First of all, I thought Tic Tacs were sugar-free. Am I the last person on earth to find out that Tic Tacs are not sugar-free? Second of all, you eat a handful of them, you crunch them up, they're just so delicious. Is there anything better than a Tic Tac? I love them. And they come in these bigger sort of packages now, which is nice. Then you don't have to just get those little things. It's basically like one portion. Take a guess on the side of a Tic Tac label. What is the recommended serving of a Tic Tac? I guess 5 or 7, right, would be a Tic Tac serving. Like Pepperidge Farm cookies, a serving is 2. Okay, I would have thought 3 cookies, but 2, fine. 1 Tic Tac. Who eats 1 fucking Tic Tac? Oh my God. Yeah, so by recommended portion, Tic Tacs are fucking fantastic for you. Anyway, I'm pissed off about it. I want sugar-free Tic Tacs. I want to be able to eat them with impunity because I love Tic Tacs. All right. Bob, who relentlessly sends me news of the day, and I appreciate him for it. Best way to have toppings placed on a burger. I'm sure everyone has seen that Washington Post article. They did a taste test. Several of the people who were on the panel of 4 deciding what the best way was are friends of mine. And so I read the piece. You know, the whole point is, you know, it's like bottom bun and top bun, but then what's the order of everything in between? Traditionally, it would be bottom bun, burger, cheese, toppings, top bun. But they found out that the order in which you layered those toppings actually makes sense. And the winner was bottom bun, cheese, the patty, mustard, pickled onion, tomato, lettuce, ketchup, top bun. I'm like, okay, so maybe, who does it hold together better for? A 4-year-old and an 88-year-old? Any adult on planet Earth, if you can't hold a burger and eat it, then shame on the person who built it for you. I have been in restaurants where there's so much shit on there, especially slippery crap like guacamole, that does not belong on a burger. I don't want to yuck on someone's yum, but it's like, come on already. I also like my cheese on top of my meat, and then it clings to the top bun, and, you know, give me a slice of tomato and we call it a day. That's what I like on my thing. But it seems to me that a lot of these, maybe because it's summer grilling season, whether it's Eater, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the LA Times, everyone is coming out with these, like, how to eat these very simple things, how to construct these very simple things. And it seems to me to kind of be clickbait, like it's a waste of time. The New York Times had their own how to grill a hot dog. And last night, I was manning the grill at my birthday party with just a couple of old close friends from New York. And we're grilling, and someone's spouse mentioned this article, and that they're actually recommending that you run the hot dog between the slats of the grill and let it rest there so that when you turn it, it doesn't roll around and move around. I'm like, oh my God, it's a hot dog. Now, I've cooked more hot dogs, I think, than anyone I know. I co-own a hot dog restaurant down in Atlanta. I'm obsessed with hot dogs. I've custom blended, I've collabed, Pat LaFrida and I designed the hot dog that we currently sell at Patty and Frank's, best hot dog in the world. I love hot dogs. I'm obsessed with hot dogs. I order them everywhere. And I had them yesterday as part of our meal, kind of like we had hors d'oeuvres and then we were grilling beef, but hot dogs was kind of like an intermezzo. And we did small, snappy ambassador wieners. They were great. Sauerkraut, relish, mustard on mine. But I just put them down and then you just roll them a half inch and how hard is it to cook a hot dog? Are we really now parsing out the best way to cook a hot dog? People are getting out of their minds. New York Times, Washington Post, don't jump the shark on me. I have too much love for you people. Speaking of hot dogs, and then the end of my rant, we'll get to some of your questions. The Nathan's hot dog eating contest has to stop. It's the most disgusting display of food behavior I have ever seen in my life. Here's why I'm not into it. First of all, one of the prelims, I guess, was the lemonade chugging contest. Why don't we just do what they're implying with everyone, let's get a couple of college teams in there and see how much they can drink before they throw up. I've never seen anything grosser in my life or more pointless. And for people to be cheering on these folks who are all going to have diverticulitis by the time they're 25, I mean, abhorrent. Second thing, eating 50 some odd hot dogs in 10 minutes. I don't care about that world record. Watching someone overeat is disgusting. And watching someone overeat, and while people are cheering, and while a nation is watching on live TV, at a time when so many people are struggling, 20% of Americans struggling. Well, 20% of Americans are food insecure. More than that are struggling. Over 20% of Americans are struggling just to put food on their family's table 3 times a day. And we're going to glorify that shit. Enough is enough. Stop it. It's disgusting. All right. A couple people now are chiming in on our Substack app. They hope my colonoscopy went well. It did. Thank you for asking. I'm clean as a pink little whistle down there. Many others wish me happy birthday. I have seen. Thank you very, very much. Mary Jo writes, have you ever used a cottage cheese puree? Yes, but made myself. I like large curd, whole milk cottage cheese. It's a wonderful ingredient to put in pastries of all kinds, in spanakopita's mixed with feta. It's a great way to soften stronger cheeses that you cook with, like goat cheese or feta, or etc. I mean, it's a wonderful ingredient in baking. It's a wonderful ingredient to pulse in the food processor and use in place of ricotta if you need to, or don't pulse it in the food processor. Those little nuggets of cheese are absolutely fantastic. I love cottage cheese. Farmer's cheese, which has a little less liquid, I love even more for those kinds of things. But yes, I have pureed cottage cheese before when I wanted something really smooth, and mostly in things like in batters. Pancakes, cookies, French toast, stuff like that. Enid writes, I'm about to have a lot of tomatoes. Me too. And I've tried home canned tomatoes before in sauce. They've seemed a little anemic. Is sauce the best use for canned tomatoes, or can I use them in other ways? Well, one of the great things to do, because it condenses everything down, is to slow roast them or get out the dehydrator and dehydrate them to their leathery and either freeze them that way. It's sort of my version of sun-dried tomatoes. By the way, if you were in a part of the country where there is low humidity, you can sun-dry your own tomatoes. Just sprinkle them with salt, put them in cheesecloth, like a hammock, with sticks so that it lies flat, sling it between 2 trees in the sun and dry them up. I mean, you'd be surprised how fast it happens. But I oven dry tomatoes, 200 degrees, toss them just enough olive oil to coat, cut them in half, and put them cut side up. And depending on the size of them, just keep an eye on them. And then when they shrivel, you don't want them to get caramelly or cracker dry, but when they get leathery, take them out. You can puree that for homemade tomato paste, or just put them in Ziploc bags and throw them in the freezer. My favorite way to get rid of summer tomatoes, other than sauce, which I just make my own sauce. And there's plenty of salt and acid in there. And then I just use the canning instructions on the whatever canning jars you use. Charles writes, I loved your mint basil lemonade. Thank you. What are some other good alcohol-free refreshers for the summer? Oh my gosh. The Southside, go on to my website, Southside, the non-alcoholic margarita. I have tons of non-alcoholic beverages there. I have a lot of alcoholic beverages there for those that like to drink. And then always a suggestion about how to not use the alcohol. So yeah, lots there. But the Southside is the best one. If you liked the mint basil lemonade, you will love the Southside, my friend. Cami writes, this might sound weird, but I can never distribute the toppings on my homemade popcorn right. Doesn't sound weird at all. Everything just ends up on the bottom of the bowl. Of course it does. What am I doing wrong? Well, you're not doing anything wrong. It's just that you're using a lot of seasonings, I guarantee it, that don't stick to the popcorn, right? So if you notice, the commercial processed seasonings are all in the form of powders, right? Those will stick to hot popcorn really easily. It's fluffy like flour. What you have to do is you have to puree your seasonings. Like, I'll give you an example. Let's say you wanted to use dried basil and sesame seeds to season your popcorn because you just loved it. It's not going to stick unless you put something on your popcorn that will make it stick. Follow? So I do have friends that use the olive oil in the mister, the psh, psh, so it diffuses it. And I have friends who use a different kind of, they'll actually melt butter and spray it on and toss so that their ingredients stick to it. One of the things that I found when testing my line of spices is that a lot of my spices fell off the popcorn, except for our Mexican seasoning, which is our powderiest. And because it's got dehydrated lime juice in there, it's spicy and tart, and it's just awesome, and it sticks to the popcorn, and I love it. But that's what you gotta do. You gotta figure out a way to turn it into a powder or toss your popcorn in something a la homemade kettle corn. I do have friends that, let's say you making it the old fashioned way. You got a little bit of oil in your pot, you put in your popcorn. When you hear that first corn pop, throw in your seasonings and put the lid back on. And keep shaking, and the oil, and as the popcorn pops, will help the stuff adhere. It's a cool little trick. Does not work in an air popper. Chef, we have a large grapevine growing in our backyard. You're lucky. Have in the past used grape leaves from your, yes, I have used grape leaves from my garden for cooking, just the largest ones. I blanch them in water in which I've put alum in there. And then I'll usually stack them, stack them for a couple hours in a pickling liquid. Tenderizes them and gives them more of that traditional Middle Eastern, Eastern European grape leaf vibe. If so, do you have a few go-to recipes? Yes. So on my website, I have these Hotel Saigon beef rolls that are usually made with a Vietnamese leaf, la lotte. But I like to make them with grape leaves, and it's seasoned beef, and you throw them on the grill, they char, and you dip them into nuoc cham. It's delicious. But my buddy Scott Conant, and nobody tell him this because it will go to his head, but in his book, Peace, Love, and Pasta, he has some family recipes in there. His wife is of Turkish descent, and I think it was her mother taught Scott her stuffed grape leaf recipe, and that's the one I use. It is fantastic with lots of glugs of really good olive oil. Oh my gosh. So get Scott Conant's book, Peace, Love, and Pasta. Do I have Peace, Love, and Pasta here? I must have Peace, Love, and Pasta here. It's probably, in the summertime, I'll show you, I have a bunch of cookbooks there that helps me to, I'm sitting at the kitchen counter. My kitchen and living room are all in the same space. But Scott Conant's in Peace, Love, and Pasta. There's also some great ones on the internet. There's so many different ways to do it, and they're all almost the same. I like Scott's a little bit, but it's a little chefier. Darnisha writes, we have so much lettuce from our garden plot. How should we store it in the fridge? Wash it, dry it, roll it in paper towels, put them in Ziploc bags with the Ziploc bag open, not closed. You want to allow them to respire and hold them in damp, or what would be damp paper toweling. Penny writes, you've talked so much about Laotian cuisine and a new Laotian place opened up near us. What should I order if I want to try some classics? Oh my gosh. Well, how about their national dish, which is green papaya salad? That's sort of where I start with everything. You have to remember, if you think about Thai food, Laotian food, Vietnamese food. This all comes from the same region of the world, and it was Western colonial powers put lines on the map that created these three countries. Before there were lines on the map, it was one big open area. Yes, they had their own kingdoms, etc. So I'm not trying, yes, I understand my history. Just from a point of food crossing borders was very, 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 very fluid. So a lot of the foods in Laotian cuisine will be very familiar to you if you eat a lot of those other cuisines. What I would do is I would go in there and ask them what they specialize in. What part of Laos is is the chef from, or the owners from? That will tell you what Lao dishes you might want to try. And I'm not trying to be not answer the question. I'm just saying I legitimately would ask them. There's a great Lao restaurant that opened up here in the Twin Cities that Ann Ahmed and her partners opened, and her curries are out of this world. And that's what I eat when I'm there. Chuck writes that he heard me on last week's AMA say that I hated the word foodie, and he wanted to say thank you. I guess that's not really a question, but I don't like foodie. I don't like veggie. I don't like anything that ends in IE. It's a diminutive. I am not a chefy. I am a chef. I am not a manny. I'm a man. You know, I just stick an IE on something and it's the death of the word. It just makes no sense to me. Don't diminutize it, honor everything. Mary writes, thank you so much for your recommendation of Wolf at the Table. I know, great book, right? I loved it. I'll be going to Sydney and Auckland early next year. I have not been to New Zealand. It is one of the few countries in the world I have not been to, so I have no help with Auckland. Restaurant and food recommendations for Mary for Sydney. Sydney is one of the 10 greatest food cities on planet Earth. There is more good food being cooked in Sydney, Australia. I'm talking about in the middle, not like super great, elevated, like, oh my God, this would be great. But Australian food is so good. People don't understand because so few people travel there a lot. Especially from this part of the world, America, because it takes so long to get there. It's expensive to get there. But it is some of the best food on planet Earth is cooked in Perth and Melbourne and, you know, Canberra and Sydney and everywhere in between. Australians, I mean, they have wine country, cheese country. It's a continent surrounded by water, you know, continent country surrounded by water. I mean, the food there is just drippingly fantastic and so chic, and their restaurants are so fantastic, and Australians love going out and having a good time, probably more than any other culture that I know of, and their restaurants are just next level. I mean, off the top of my head, Clam Bar, which is their version of a New York style steakhouse, but oh my God, it's so much better than that. St. Peter, which is probably one of the world's best restaurants, you know, by far. And Josh Nyland is the chef owner there. He has charcoal fish, which is another concept of his that is also equally good. But if you don't go to, I mean, if I had to eat one meal, is it St. Peter? Maybe. Hubert, H-U-B-E-R-T, is a brasserie that is so much fun to eat in. It's going to curl your toes. Jane, which is a very sort of food-forward med-style restaurant, I absolutely love. Bar Vincent in Darlinghurst is incredible. Italian-ish, absolutely out of this world. Auntie, which is Gemma Whiteman's restaurant, is fantastic, Japanese-ish. By the way, so much food in Sydney. is influenced by so many Asian countries because the Asian diaspora just headed 6 to 9 hours south and landed in Australia. There is an argument to be made that some of the best Vietnamese, Thai, or Chinese food in the world is being cooked in Sydney right now, and Japanese food. I love 10 William Street, another sort of French, Italianish, hybridized wine bar serving some of the best snacks on planet Earth. I talked about Chinese before. Good Luck, which is a restaurant there, is absolutely fantastic. Japanese izakaya, Chocho-san, Chochosan. Chocho-san is out of this world. Thai food, pork fat is fantastic. Love that. If you want to do sort of like a more pubby kind of thing, Whitehorse is great. Cirrus, Cirrus for seafood is, absolutely out of this world. What else have I loved there recently? Anything that Neil Perry touched, he has an incredible restaurant group in Sydney. Rockpool, his OG restaurant, is great. So many of his chefs have headed out and opened up their own places. There's a place called Ursula's that Phil Wood opened, and he used to work for Neil. Icebergs, of course, Italian lunch by the sea, right on the end of Bondi Beach, so I would go to Icebergs. Sixpenny, fantastic smallish plates restaurant. All right, I'm going to stop because one of the things that you all said was you hated it when I talked about too many restaurants during my list. So there's enough to keep you busy. And then ask the people at those restaurants where they eat. Anyway, love you all. Have a great rest of your week.